So what I need to know is any apologies. I'm assuming there's no apologies.
No apologies.
No. No items of urgent business.
No items of urgent business.
No, thank you. So this is for an application for a new premises license at the Bull, 41 Bridge Street, Fakenham, Norfolk, NR 21 9AG. Just to brief you, the summary is this is an application for a new license, premises license. The conclusions that members consider and determine the case from the written and oral information provided, and then recommendations that the members consider and determine this case. What I'd like to do is just pass it on to Chido to actually give the overview of actually how the process will work, if you don't mind, please.
Chido, before you do that, I'm not sure if Alison Cornelius is a person that we've got on here. It's coming up on my screen as she's connecting to audio, whether or not Alison can confirm that she can actually hear the proceedings.
Just wait here.
Yeah, I've got it as well as connected, is connecting to audio. Connecting rather than connected.
Connected, yeah.
Yes.
Alison Cornelius. Joined the meeting.
Right, so she's joined.
Yeah, do you want to introduce the members of the committee?
Yes, for now, people who've now attended, I would like to, I'm introducing myself as Pierre Butikofer, the chair of licensing committee. And will my two members introduce themselves, as well as the legal advisor and also the representative for NNDC, please?
I'm Pauline Grove Jones, and I'm a district councillor for Stalham and Sutton and Catfield.
And I'm Tim Adams. I'm district councillor for Cromer and also a member of this committee. Thanks.
Good morning. I'm Lara Clare. I'm the licensing enforcement officer at North Norfolk District Council.
Good morning. My name is Chidam Shanga and I'm the legal advisor in today's proceedings.
Thank you. And I'm Teflon shouldering this to Chido. Could you please outline the procedure for both the members and the attendees?
Of course. Can I just check if we've got the applicant or the representative here in today's proceedings?
Good morning, committee. Yes, Alex Green on behalf of the applicant. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
You can, yes. Thank you. Today I'll just outline today's procedure. So as I just mentioned earlier, my name is Chido and I'm the legal advisor in today's proceedings. We are here to consider an application for a premises license for the Bull in Fakenham, Norfolk. Can I just check that the panel have received a copy of the licensing officer's report and also that the applicant has received this as well?
Yeah, I confirm it, yes.
Confirmed.
Perfect. And I also note that the chairman has already outlined who is in today's proceedings. Just a bit about what will be going on today. So the licensing officer will present her report to the subcommittee. Thereafter, the applicant, the other persons and members of the subcommittee will have an opportunity to ask any questions. Thereafter, the applicant will then have an opportunity to put forward their case. And then the floor will be open from any questions from all parties involved in today's proceedings. If the applicant has called a witness, the licensing officer, the other members or their representatives and members of the subcommittee will have an opportunity to ask any questions. And then the other persons will also have an opportunity to present their case and call any witnesses should they wish to give as evidence in support of the case. And then thereafter, the floor will be open for any questions from the licensing officer, the applicant, and members of the subcommittee. If the other persons have called a witness, there'll be an opportunity for the licensing officer, the applicant, and members of the subcommittee to raise any questions to the other person's witness. This process is repeated until all other persons who wish to make oral representations have been given the opportunity to present their case. Just to remind all parties, local objectors may not question each other. And then at the end of this process, there'll be an opportunity for each party to address the panel and sum up what they consider are really important points that they would like the panel to take into account when making their decision. The panel would then retire to consider the application and make a decision. As today's proceedings are remote, the licensing officer, Linda, the applicant, and other persons and their representatives will be asked to exit the Zoom meeting. As the panel's legal advisor, I will not be exiting this meeting. I will be joining the subcommittee panel during the deliberation and provide any relevant advice surrounding the 4 licensing objectives. I will not be taking part in the decision making. However, I'll be there to assist the panel with the formulation of facts and reasonings for that decision. All parties will have written notification of the decision within 5 working days, which is set out in the legislation. And as today's hearing is taking place remotely, it must be conducted in a as fairly as possible and in line with Article 6, which is the right to a fair hearing under the Human Rights Act 1998. If at any time during today's proceedings as well, if any parties are facing any technical difficulties, or if they unexpectedly leave the hearing will be adjourned until that person returns and all parties are present. And just finally, I would like to raise any sort of preliminary issues if there are any. And for me, I would like to draw the panel's attention to the fact that no responsible authorities have made any objections to the application. And I'll now pass back to the chair.
Thank you very much for that really good clarification of what we're going to do today. So my understanding is now it's for you, Lara, to give an overview of what's going to of the application, please.
Certainly. Just make sure
Thank
I'm not
you.
on mute. As you've already said, this is an application today for a premises license for a previously licensed premises called the Bull at Fakenham. I mentioned that it was previously licensed. The license was closed on the 5th of November 2020, and it previously had a license to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for all licensable activities. That was closed, as I say, November 2020 due to the insolvency of the license holder and there being no transfer to transfer that license within the allotted 28 days within the statutory requirements. So this is a premises license application to relicense this premises. If I can draw your attention to pages 21 to 44 within the bundle, that's the application. And then at page 45 is the premises plan for this premises to operate as a public house. The applicant seeks to have on page 4 of the bundle, it lists the licensable activities as films, live music, recorded music, and sale of alcohol on and off the premises between the hours of 8 AM and midnight on a Monday to Thursday. And Friday and Saturday it's from 8 AM till 1 AM. And then on Sunday, it's going back to 8 AM till midnight. And then to have late night refreshment from the hours of 2300 hours to 030 hours on Sunday to Thursday, and then 1:30 in the morning on a Friday and a Saturday. The conditions will be the mandatory conditions that will be attached to the licence, which are listed at pages 4, pages 5 and pages 6 within the bundle. The applicant has also put forward 5 additional conditions as part of their operating schedule, which are at page 44 in your bundle, but they're also listed at page 6. We didn't receive any representations from any of the responsible authorities. However, the police confirmed that they were happy with the application with the addition of the 5 additional conditions that were proposed by the applicant. The objections that we received from residents, we received 3, and they were in relation to public nuisance. And you can see those in your bundles on pages 51 to 55. The rest of the bundle goes on to our standard mandatory responsibilities that we have, and goes on with relation to the licensable activities and the applicant's responsibilities to those. So that's the application. It's an application to license a premises that historically was licensed until November 2020. So this is an application to relicense that premises.
Thank you very much indeed, Laura. So next, what's the next step, please?
The floor is now open from any questions from the applicant, the panel, and the objectors.
Okay, who would like to start first, please? Stunned silence.
I have nothing to add at this stage. Thank you, Chair.
I'd like to just seek some clarification on several points. Could you just describe to me, partly because could you describe to me what the sale of alcohol off premises actually means?
That would be if I'd like to describe that as if you were going into a supermarket. So you go into a supermarket, you buy a bottle of wine off the shelf, it's still got the cork in the bottle, you're taking it away to drink it away from the premises. So if you're in a pub and the pub is called Last Orders, but you want to take a bottle of wine home because you want to continue drinking when you get home, that would be, you would take alcohol away from the premises in a closed container to drink off of the premises, away from the premises.
Thank you. A question for the applicant. Can you clarify to the committee what is meant as late night refreshments, please?
Of course, Chair. I mean, I will go through everything in my submissions, and I probably will even cover this at that stage, but I can just clarify, and I can see where one of the objectors may have seemingly been concerned. It's hot food and hot drink, really, but a public house late at night, it's a hot drink. There are a couple of letting rooms, I think 4 letting rooms at this pub. You know, a hot drink being provided is covered by late night refreshment. It's not a kebab shop, you know, a takeaway or anything. It's just ticking the box of being able to serve hot drinks and hot food if so required. That's all.
Well, what I'll do what I'll do is I'll reserve my questions until I've heard your discussion, if you know what I mean, with your application, if you don't mind, please, because I'm sure that will prompt additional questions. Is that okay, Lee?
If I may just jump in there, Chair.
Of course.
Late night refreshment is, as Mr. Green said, it is the sale of hot food and hot drink after 11 o'clock at night and before 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, if you've got a license at any premises, if you want to sell hot food or hot drink after 11 and before 5 a.m, you need to have a premises license to do so. So if the pub was asked for a cup of coffee or a cup of tea beyond the hours of 11 o'clock at night, that would need to be mentioned on their license. Before then, it doesn't need to be.
Okay, you can, well, okay, I'll leave sort of thoughts and comments for later, if you don't mind. So is it now for Mr. Green to give an overview? Am I right in that? Oh, Pauline, is that? Yeah. So Mr. Green, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Good morning, all. I'll be as brief as possible. If it's okay with the committee, I'll go through my submissions in 3 stages. Number 1, I will just explain again why we're here today. Number 2, I will demonstrate how the application meets the licensing objectives. And finally, I will just briefly respond to the objections we have received. I do have, hopefully, Alison Cornelius either on the line or in the background, who is the applicant's senior property manager, in case there are any operational questions that I can't answer. So
yes,
this
I'm on
is
the line.
an application. Oh, hi, Alison, thank you. This is an application by Wellington Pub Company PLC, the freehold owner of the Bull Public House, to restore the premises licence for the property that has traded as a public house, I believe, since approximately 1837. I think it is important, however, and Lara did touch upon it, I think it's important to set the context against which this application is made. The premises licence lapsed due to the bankruptcy of the tenant. Had the applicant submitted a simple transfer, an interim authority notice within 28 days, the licence would still be in force and we would not be sat here today. The licence was not revoked, nor were there any complaints or issues with the operation of the premises. It was lost due to an administrative failure to submit correct paperwork within a time frame. As soon as the applicant realised that the administrative error had taken place, they started the process of resubmitting, submitting an application to relicense the property as soon as possible. The new licence application is intended to mirror as closely as possible the licence that lapsed. However, and this is again very important, and Lara did mention this, the previous licence was totally unrestricted, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, sale of alcohol, opening, live music, recorded music, etc. The applicant, however, having liaised with the police, agreed to submit an application with the alcohol and the opening hours more in keeping with other licensed premises in the town. The licence that lapsed, and again this has been touched upon, the licence that lapsed had no volunteered conditions on it whatsoever, just mandatory conditions. The new licence application, as we've heard, contains conditions that were discussed and agreed with the local police, licensing police, prior to the submission of the application, and also the environmental health officer saw these conditions and nobody had any issues whatsoever. None of the responsible authorities have objected to this application. These are the responsible authorities who are the experts in their respective fields, and that's from 9.12 of the Section 182 Guidance, Home Office 2018. So briefly, the applicant is Wellington Pub Company PLC. The company owns the largest free of type pub estate in the UK, as well as other retail, restaurant, fast food type properties. The applicant is currently in discussion with potential tenants, but cannot proceed further until the pub has a premises license. Who wants a pub with no premises license, in effect? The applicant would like the property to be a benefit to the community. At the moment, it's more of a burden. So steps to promote the licensing objectives. Again, I'm repeating myself. Prior to submitting the application, the conditions were agreed with the police, and as you've seen already, page 44 of the committee papers. The conditions include Challenge 25 age verification policy, refusals and incident book, notices asking the patrons to leave quietly, and other conditions such as documented staff training. I will touch upon the representations received, if that's okay. Obviously, we need to consider the representations against the backdrop again that there are no representations from any of the responsible authorities. The applicant accepts and understands the concerns of the local objectors. It is, however, very important that the objectors understand that the premises licence hours sought are significantly more restrictive than the ones that were in place previously. I believe there was a misconception that the applicant is seeking to extend hours, and it's just not the case. It's just not true. They're being reduced. So I'll very briefly look at some of the points made by the objectors, if that's okay. Mr. Armitage, who I think we may have here today, he quotes, "The Bull has always been a traditional pub and not too rowdy or late." Well, I agree. There are no plans to change the offering, no plans at all to change the offering, and the hours sought are significantly less than the lapsed license. I note that Mr. Armitage also says, "I fear that it will become," in the fourth line. This is, with the greatest of respect, supposition, speculation. I think it seemingly is based on noise coming from another pub a few hundred meters away. I go on. "I read the license application for late night drinking and music with horror." Again, no plans to change the general offering. The hours sought are significantly less than the lapsed license. This is a relatively small traditional public house with some letting rooms, a small kitchen. It's a relatively commercial, not particularly residential area of the town. As the property does have letting rooms, it is not in the applicant's interest to have lots of noise late at night. I will briefly mention some of Mr. Lynham on page 52, 53, Mr. Lynham in the pack. I believe he seemingly has issues with another public house in the town, which I believe is called the Crown. A number of his comments seemingly based on issues he has with his local public house, which is the Crown. Well, you are an experienced committee. Mr. Lynham does have options available to him if he, under the Act, if he has issues with a local premise. We're not talking about the Bull here, as far as I can see. He mentions the Crown's license seems to run until midnight. We would expect the Bull to act similarly. Well, I believe the Crown has 1 AM weekends, and that's the same hours that my client is looking for here, just to give them the flexibility. So Mr. Lynham's speculation really is based on speculation, supposition, no evidence whatsoever that the Bull has ever caused any problems whatsoever. In fact, I think he quotes rare disturbances outside the Crown as a reason to refuse this license. Well, that's not overly relevant to this application, in my opinion. Mr. Lynham mentions the police statistics for the town. Well, as we've heard already, the police have absolutely no issue whatsoever with this application with the hours and the conditions provided. I'll very briefly mention Mr. and Mrs. Watts on pages 54 and 55. Again, I think there's a misconception. They quote a change in opening hours, namely the late night sessions and the live music provisions. Again, I think there's a slight misunderstanding. The hours are significantly less than before. We're not changing the offering. It's in keeping with other premises in the area. And again, coming back to the late night refreshment chair that you mentioned earlier, they quote the provision of refreshments being prepared and served between the hours of 2300 to 1:30. As mentioned before, this is simply the flexibility to offer hot drink, etc., to somebody who is still on the premises later on in the evening. That's all. It's flexibility. So I will leave it there. Those are my submissions. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Green. Are there any questions for Mr. Green from the committee, please, and/or Mr. Armitage eventually? But I'll come back to you, Mr. Armitage. Any questions, please? Yes, Tim.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to confirm then a few things that essentially the premises, the kitchen wouldn't be operating outside of any normal hours. That isn't envisaged or planned. Secondly, I wondered whether I could sort of ask whether the planned opening times in practice are as detailed in the application. And that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the question was, I think as far as the kitchen is concerned, the kitchen will be open. There's no plan to do any kind of late night kitchen offering. The pub is a traditional pub offering food for the period that it would be commercially viable to operate a traditional pub. Food, as you know, you wouldn't normally go and eat food at 11 o'clock necessarily in a pub. It's flexibility. There's no plan to offer a specific late night food offering. Therefore, there shouldn't be any concerns as far as the kitchen is concerned. And as far as the opening hours are concerned, the opening hours are just, again, flexibility, half an hour after the alcohol hours. And as far as the actual opening hours are concerned, commercially, we would have to see down the line once a tenant is in place. But as I said, it was 24 hours previously, and there were no problems there. These are much shorter hours.
Thank you. Pauline?
Yes, 2 questions. Good morning. I'm sorry, I can't read your name. My screen is Mr. Green. I do apologise.
It's not a problem. Good morning to you. Good morning.
I'm on my iPad and it's so small.
Oh dear.
Just 2 things. Do you have a restriction on the number of patrons you can have into your bar and seating areas? Is there a capacity?
I'm not aware of any specific capacity. It's not very large. It's not a kind of cram them in sort of venue. I'm not sure if there's a planning restriction on numbers, but it's not a large venue. So there's nothing as far as the premises license restrictions are concerned.
And I've only got 2 other questions. What would be your target audience? Would it be the youngsters from 18 to 30, or are you completely across the board, or did the previous bull have an older generation patron?
I believe that historically there's been a real ale element, a kind of beer drinker, sort of slightly older beer drinker element. There's always the possibility of a kind of bistro style element, but the kitchen's not large. It's not a large property. It would be a mixed sort of property. It's certainly not what's known as a wet-led pub, where young drinkers. There is a Wetherspoons around the corner, maybe more for that. This is not that sort of property and never has been.
Yes, I do understand that. I understand Wetherspoons do actually cater for a much wider range of customer. And just one other thing, is there an area outside the pub that is available to the patrons to sit and consume alcohol or food, or do you just have the street?
No, there is a small terrace at the front of the property available for patrons to eat, drink, etc.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Armitage, oh, sorry, Lara.
Sorry, if I can just clarify the late night refreshment, because it's come up a few times. If a public house was to sell a cup of coffee at 11:05 and they didn't have late night refreshment on their license, they would be in breach of the Licensing Act. So the sale of hot food and hot drink beyond 11 o'clock, it is a case of if someone is sat in the premises and would like a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, it's not necessarily for the sale of late night pizzas, burgers going out of the premises at 11 o'clock at night. It's not generally used for that. It's generally used that in a premises like this, that if someone wants a cup of coffee, the premises either has to give it away after 11 o'clock or they have to have late night refreshment on their license.
Thank you for that clarification, because I also had the mental issue of having Michelin star restaurant type food being served at 1:15 in the morning, but so that's been clarified anyhow. Mr. Armitage, would you like to ask some questions?
Well, I did put in the chat that I actually represent 27 elderly people with dementia.
No, I saw that.
Yeah, so it's so close. That is the trouble. And okay, I realised Mr. Green was saying about the licensing hours actually being less than before, but when they opened up the licensing hours, I wasn't aware then that we could complain. And I thought it was just the government said you can now open 24 hours a day and that was it. So I was worried about that, but I was pleased that the bull then turned into something that was like the traditional ale drink, like a traditional pub, which it had been, you know, until the licensing hours opened up and would have been shut at 11, or, you know, the drinkers would have gone home by 11:30. So you always had that time at a reasonable time where people who don't go out can get to sleep and enjoy a reasonable quality of life. And I just ask anyone there if they would like late night drinking going on within meters of their bedroom window. And, you know, you can all know that it's going to stop at a certain time. And these people don't know that. They, you know, they live in the moment, and they won't know that at 1 o'clock or whatever, which isn't a reasonable hour I'd suggest for most people to go to sleep, that the noise is going to stop, and potentially disturbance in the street. But I know that's all hypothetical until it happens, but it does happen, of course, and anyone who has gone out in their day would know that that's going to happen. And I don't know, I suppose the human rights thing, I know the lawyer mentioned human rights, but it must be a human right to get a decent night's sleep and have peace and quiet, you know, after a certain time. And if you live in a town centre, then, you know, that's just no different to anywhere else. Anyway, that's all I'd say, is just think of what it would be like for you having that outside your bedroom window. And yeah.
Just before you answer that, Mr. Green, I've just a couple of points from that. Excuse me. I accept that dementia patients are not deaf. So, you know, most people, you know.
Well, some people are, but, you know,
no,
the majority aren't. But yeah.
But you cannot assume that, you know, dementia patients are deaf. I accept that.
Absolutely not.
Also, I want to seek clarification with you. How long has the residential home been there? So was it a residential home prior to the 5th of November 2020, i.e. when the bull was a 24-hour, potentially 24-hour pub?
Yes, it's been there since the 1980s. So when it opened, the bull would have been a normal pub and shut at 11, and everyone would have gone home by 11:30, as was the Limes across the road. So, you know, we have got a lot of pubs around. When I guess it was the Labour government opened up the licensing hours, then that was a great concern for us. But I didn't realise, I thought that was the law, that pubs could now open 24 hours. And I didn't even realise that there was a potential restriction on the licence then. But obviously when I saw the application for this licence, then I realised that we could have checked. So I thought I would, because obviously I know that it's going to be an issue for us.
I think you and I are of the generation where pubs were closing at 11 o'clock, and we all had to be out by 11:15. So, you know,
yeah,
things have moved on, and, you know, I accept that, you know, pubs now are subject to, you know, in the new environment, that, you know, they can be open 24/7 if they need to be. I don't think a lot of pubs actually are. So just going back to, since you were there since 1984, have you had issues with noise, especially in the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years or so?
No, it's actually got better since the Wetherspoons took over the Limes, because the Limes used to be quite a rowdy music pub, and then it was, you know, regular cars
and with the bull in its old
no, because as Mr. Green has said, it was a traditional ale pub, and, you know, people get home to bed. You know what I mean? Then, so it's just the fact that I'm worried that they're going to look for a niche to compete with Wetherspoons, because they can't compete with them on the ale, I wouldn't think, because it's the the price and just basically price probably. And so with this music license, and we've got the Crown, and I know that's irrelevant probably to this application, but they are going to have to do something different to actually get a clientele or to actually earn any money, I would think. And that is the music that is my concern, I guess, and the noise late at night.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Armitage. Mr. Green, opportunity to observation, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Mr. Armitage. I know he didn't actually ask me a specific question as such. I respect his opinions. There is no kind of niche. We're not looking for a niche. There's this idea that we've suddenly the applicant has suddenly turned to music. As the committee will know, live music is allowed and recorded music up till 11 o'clock anyway, without even being on a license. This isn't a niche. It is simply just putting the things on the license that it had before, but significantly shorter hours. Nobody's trying to open up a live music, late night live music venue here in any way, shape or form. I respect Mr. Armitage's views, but hopefully I can reassure the committee that that is not the case, and normal service should be resumed going forward. And I thank Mr. Armitage for confirming that the bull has never been a problem historically. So thank you.
Mr. Green, could you also just confirm, if possible, how often has the police been involved in any incidents in, let's say, the last 5 years?
I do not have those statistics, Chair. I will ask Alison just in case she has any knowledge of any police issues. I'm not aware from previous discussions, and I know the police have no issues whatsoever. I'm not aware of any issues with the police here at all. Alison?
No, nor am I. I'm not aware of any issues with the police at all. I've worked for the company for the last 5 years. I've been obviously involved with the bull for the last 5 years, and I have not dealt with the police once in 5 years.
Thank you.
And no complaints of antisocial behaviour without the police being involved?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank
Not
you.
to my knowledge, no.
No, thank you for that.
Yeah. Lara
yes,
wants
Paul.
to talk.
Sorry, I wasn't too sure. Oh, sorry, Lara, and then I'll come back to you, Chido. Lara, please.
Lovely, thank you. I just wanted to state that the licence that's being applied for now has actually got less licensable activities requested than the previous licence. The previous licence had the likes of boxing and wrestling and indoor sporting events, etc. on its licence, and it was a licence for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for everything. So it's just for clarity that this licence is a lot less than they had previously.
No, okay, thank you for that clarification. Chido, I wasn't too sure whether you were playing with your mic there.
Yeah, so I just had a few questions to Mr. Green. I know you outlined that with the opening hours, your clients were looking for flexibility. However, is there a plan in place to in respect of opening hours that you intend, or that's not yet something that your clients have considered?
It's thank you for the question. It's difficult to kind of explain any plans at this stage, because what's important is to get this pub up and running, and to breathe life back into the area, and to open it. And to do that, we need to attract, or the applicant needs to attract, a suitable tenant who will come in and look at the offering. So yes, no plans in place as far as opening hours are concerned.
Okay, and another question, where in the premises will music be played?
Well, if there's any, if you've seen the plan in the application, there's only really, the main bar area. It's quite a small operation. On page 45. You'll see it's not large at all. There are only really 2 or 3 rooms. So there's not a separate music area. There's not a kind of loud music section around the back, whatever. If there is any background or any recorded music, or at an absolute push any live music. It would just be in the main section.
Right. And because the license you're requesting is also for outdoors, would this be, where would this be as well? Is this, let me just have a look on the plan.
As far as that, there are no plans whatsoever. As far as there's no plans to have recorded or live music outside. It's simply a case of just replicating the previous license. There's no plans whatsoever to introduce a live music or recorded music outside offering.
Yeah. And finally, how do your clients sort of plan on promoting the main sort of licensing objective that has been brought up by the objectors, which is public nuisance?
Well, is it public nuisance or is it noise?
No, sorry,
it's
not
more noise.
Yes.
Yeah, I think yes,
within
it's
the
more
realm
of a noise.
public, yeah.
It's more of a noise issue, I think. I mean, it's never been a problem, and none of the responsible authorities have an issue. I'm loath to proffer up a condition in those circumstances. We could potentially suggest that a condition is added simply to say all windows and doors are closed after, say, 11 p.m. when any regulated entertainment is taking place. That might reassure Mr. Armitage potentially.
Yeah.
Can I just?
Yes, Pauline and then Lara.
I was going to bring this up also, Mr. Green. We have had this in the past in premises applications about open windows, etc., which allows the noise to escape. Presumably this bar area is fairly enclosed, or this opens, but it could be considered that there would be a restriction on the playing of music after a certain time. Would your company be okay with that?
Well, I thank you for the question. I think if we were to have if there was to be regulated entertainment taking place after, say, 11 o'clock, obviously it is important that the licensing objectives are met. And if we were to offer up a condition where all windows and doors are closed after 11 o'clock, then there should be no nuisance for the neighbours. If the neighbours found that there was a nuisance going forward, then they have the usual rights of what they can do.
Thank you. We'll discuss this when we go into our private session. Thank you.
Lara?
Just wanted to confirm that the application is for recorded music and live music inside the premises, not outside.
Oh.
The applicant isn't applying for live music or recorded music outside the premises. The provision of films has been requested for both indoors and outdoors, but not live or recorded music.
Films outside, I find that quite strange. Are we going to do the American drive-through?
Again, it's a tick box. Thank you for the question. Just a tick box exercise from the previous application. Absolutely no plans for American drive-throughs on the front of the street.
Thank you. Thank you. Over to you, Pierre, I think.
And not trying to preempt anything, Mr. Green, but would you feel comfortable with a condition of windows to be closed after 11 p.m. in an evening? I'm only thinking about, when we have these hot summers that we always have every year, but I just want to see your view there, please.
Well, you hit a good point. I mean, it is an issue when we do occasionally have a nice sunny day, that the windows thing can be an issue. But Alison, can you just confirm, would you be happy, hypothetically, with a condition that says that all windows and doors are closed after 11 p.m. when any regulated entertainment is taking place?
Hello. I don't have an issue with it. The only thing I would bring to the committee's attention is the fact that with the COVID restrictions that we've had, is one of the things that we have been asked an awful lot, particularly for pubs that we do have sealed windows, is that the windows are opened. And we had requests like that coming from the EHO officers saying that, with COVID and everything else at the moment, they need to have well ventilated pubs, i.e. the windows need to be opened. So what I don't want to do is find that we've got a hot summer's night and then we're not allowed to open the windows if there is music playing, live or recorded music playing. And then we're also sort of like keeping people confined in an unventilated space with the COVID requirements at the moment. I'm happy to offer it up if necessary, but I just think the committee do need to be aware of that point.
I accept that, but hopefully in the next 6 months or so, the COVID should be on a big decrease, but I'm not holding my breath for anything. But thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Mr. Chairman, that at the moment, there's a lot of nervousness in the trade that we're going to be encountering another lockdown or more trading restrictions come the winter.
I accept that.
It's you know, it's weighing up the balance basically between you know, maybe some very rare escape of music late at night as to weighing up, you know, customers' health.
I accept that totally, and I've heard the same potential incidents going to happen in the winter. So, but thank you for that clarification.
Can I just,
Pauline? Yeah.
Having had a licensed premises myself, not a pub as such, but a restaurant and a wine bar, usually you find that after a certain time, your clientele will tell you whether they want to stay and drink longer than 11 o'clock at night. And a lot of people, it's only the very young, I think, people of my advanced and decrepit age wouldn't actually go to a pub and expect to have music after a certain time. The ventilation factor is tremendously important. And there is also air conditioning, which a lot of pubs now have in, but we'll consider
the Bull doesn't. It's a traditional pub. The majority of our pubs do not have forced air ventilation or air conditioning units. Certainly not the older premises. You know, if it's somewhere like a Spoons, they normally put it in because they're huge, but not the Bull because it's so small.
Yeah, we still don't know how many people it can hold, do we? There's never been any sort of restriction on numbers. Sorry, no. Pierre, I'll shut up.
The occupancy would be down to the fire risk assessment that's carried out at the premises. So it would be down to the premises' individual fire risk assessment as to assess how many people that they can have in there at that time.
Yeah. Okay. I'm fine with that. Yeah.
No, fine. Thank you very much indeed. Anybody, any more questions? It's still open to the floor.
No.
Looks like that's a negative. So what do we do? What's the next step, please, Chair Doe?
I don't know if Mr. Armitage wanted to say anything else in respect of what we have just discussed.
Okay, well, yeah, Pauline just hit the nail on the head. She said older people tend to go to bed earlier or whatever, or, you know, so the music will be for younger people and perhaps, yeah, more rowdy people. You know, it's the traditional pub I don't have an objection to. It's the looking for somehow to market the pub which is going to compete with all the other offerings in town, and that is I think going to be the music late at night probably.
Mr. Armitage, there is nothing stopping you if let's say in 6 to 8 months the music is really bad, that you can call in EHO and call to the council to listen. You know, and I'm sure we will listen to your objections, but you know, you have that avenue to go down.
Yes, I know.
Thank you. Anybody, anything else to say? Chado, does Mr. Green just now sum up?
Yes, the floor is open for all parties to sum up if required, if necessary.
Right. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I'll very quickly sum up then what we have heard today. Section 943 of the 182 Home Office Guidance states that an authority's determination should be evidence-based This was backed up by the well-known High Court case of Thwaites. So evidence rather than supposition, concerns or guesswork, in effect. So what is the evidence? Well, no objections or concerns whatsoever from the experts and the primary sources of guidance in crime and disorder and nuisance and noise, being the police and environmental health. Surely, if there were any concerns about this premise or the immediate area, the police would have objected. The fact, or this fact, should carry considerable weight when determining the application. As we have already seen, there are robust, comprehensive conditions that have been agreed with the police in advance, and the police are happy. We have a long established traditional pub with a food offering, letting rooms. The applicant wants to breathe life into the area. We don't want it to be another closed pub. We have objectors, and I respect what they have to say, but they are predicting what may happen if the license is granted, what might happen. A number of their concerns about noise and music seem to be based on this other pub down in Marketplace. Nothing whatsoever to do with this pub. In fact, Mr. Armitage has confirmed that today, that no problems with the bull or the running of the bull historically. So I'll finish by reminding the committee it's not a review hearing. This is not a review hearing. In fact, we'd not be sat here today if a simple £28 transfer had been made, quick bit of paper had been filled out and sent across. We wouldn't be here today. This has been touched upon already, but I'll remind the local residents, and Mr. Armitage, I know fully aware of this, in the future, if the operation of the premise is not meeting the licensing objectives under the Licensing Act, then people are able to bring this to the attention of the authorities and the responsible authorities. So I conclude, therefore, by thanking the committee for its time. And in light of what we've heard today, I respectfully invite the committee to grant the application in full. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Green. Anybody else wants to sum up or anything? Or...
Just a final comment from myself,
sorry,
please,
Lara.
Chair.
Yeah.
Just to confirm what Mr. Green has just said, if you look at page 17 of the bundle, I've actually detailed it in there that determining actions that are appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives, and 9.43 is actually listed at page 17 of your bundle.
Thank you very much. Duly noted. So I presume now we go into private session, but if that's the case, I want to thank Alex Green, Alison Cornelius and Tim Armitage for being open, honest, and thanking you for accepting the questions from the panel. It's really important for us to have a total overview. So in that respect, I thank you very much indeed, and wish you a good day. But thank you.
Thank you to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah, as explained, the panel will retire to consider the application and make a decision. And then, so as today's proceedings are remotely, being conducted remotely, everyone will be asked to exit apart from myself and the panel. And as I clarified at the beginning of this meeting, I'll be joining them during their deliberation and provide any relevant advice surrounding the four licensing objectives, but I will not be taking part in any of the decision making, but I'll be there to help the panel assist them with the formulation of facts and reasonings for their decision. And then all parties will receive written notification of the decision within 5 working days as set out within the legislation as well. And lastly, 1 second, before the hearing closes, I just wanted to outline my advice that I'll be giving the panel to assist with their deliberation. So essentially in determining the application, the subcommittee must give appropriate weight to the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives, the oral representation presented by the parties in today's hearing, and the written representation which are included within the licensing officer's report, and then also guidance under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, and then the Council's licensing policy. I will refer the subcommittee to the Council's licensing policy, namely that every application will be dealt with impartially and on its individual merits. And the panel will also need to focus on the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives. The most relevant in today's proceedings is the prevention of public nuisance. And then also a subcommittee should have regard to the oral representations before them, and also the written ones as well. And then in relation to in relation to representations that have been made, both written and oral, the subcommittee should only consider relevant representations. So a representation will be considered as relevant if it relates to the 4 licensing, for the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives, and representations which are vexatious or frivolous should be disregarded. And then also I will refer the subcommittee to the case of Thwaites, which recognises that significant weight should be placed on the views of responsible authorities because they are experts in their fields, and therefore have particular responsibility in these areas. To that end, I would like to highlight that no responsible authorities have made any objections to this application.
And just before we all log off, I forgot to thank Lara for a really good piece of work. I went round the screen, so don't think I was ignoring you. I think you've done a really good piece of work. You've helped us with clarification from the council's perspective. So I thank you for that, by the way.
Pleasure, thank you.
Right, I think we now go into private session. Once again, thank you very much for participating.